Hello and welcome to week 6. For week 6, we'll start with our overview for the week. You'll notice that we don't have a reading assignment this week. As we move through the review section, you will receive screencast comments on your drafts, and we'll move through organizing that primary research portion of the project. As we've been talking about all semester, the project builds from the very beginning of the semester all the way till you turn in project number 3, which is the last assignment for the semester. And then we'll go through the 2 assignments due at the end of the week on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. All right, for the screencast comments on your drafts, remember, you're going to want to look at the comments that I've left for you. You'll find these by going to grades and clicking on the project number 2 rough draft assignment. Each of you will receive an individualized video with comments on your draft. So once you've played those, you can always ask questions, but that should guide some of your revision of that project number 2. All right, we're moving into that primary research analysis. This week, it's divided into parts 1 and 2. This week, you only have to submit part 1. Part 1 is what we call the data collection piece, and that's where you begin to tell us what the methods were for collecting that primary research data. You'll have your participants, you'll describe your instrumentation, which in your case is your interview questions and your observation protocol, and then you'll describe when you collected the data. So you're only turning in part 1 this week. But I do want to show you part 2 as well, which will be due the following week. And in part 2, you analyze that data. You do that in raw form. When you first analyze your data, you just give the specifics of what you found via the observations and the interview. The results interpret that raw data. That is where you explain what that data means. You'll talk about your limitations. All studies have some limitations, whether it's a short window for observing, whether it's the interview questions, or the observations could have been more targeted in different ways. It could be a small sample size, but there are always some limitations when we study. And then your discussion portion brings together the primary and secondary research. So where does what you found when you did your interview and observations align with those 4 sources that you researched for your 2 annotated bibliographies? Where do they agree? And when they disagree, maybe you can explain why in that discussion section. But that discussion section really should have some citations from at least a few of those 4 sources that you found throughout the 2 annotated bibliographies. All right, and then as you move through this process, I created a short slide deck that goes through each portion of that primary research, data collection, and data analysis. I've also included for you a sample of what it looks like when it's all together with the correct way in MLA format that you would use your headings and subheadings for the level 2 and level 3 headings throughout that section. So you can see that methods is in all caps, and then you see participants, which is italicized, and then there's a period and it goes right into that information without an indentation. That would be how MLA would set up that section of a research paper. And then I included just a short article on how to write an ethnography, just to give you a little bit more background on this kind of writing. And then finally, as we've been talking about, you really want to think about what this project number 3 looks like. Project number 2 is really the introductory piece. That's going to be your literature review. That's going to be where you have that secondary research. As we talked about as you were drafting project number 2, this is what everybody else has said about your topic, or at least 4 sources out there have said about your topic already. And then your primary research delves into what you're seeing in relationship to your topic. And then you put it all together, like I said, to form almost what you've been reading in these scholarly articles where you see that literature review, you see a short study, and then the discussion and conclusion. And of course, you'll have your references, which is your works cited page. You'll have your appendices, which are the interview questions and that observation protocol. So it's just, moving all of these pieces together so that you've got your final project for the last week of the semester. All right, and then don't forget both, project number 2, final copy, and part 1, just part 1 of your primary research data collection are due at the end of the week, Sunday at 11:59 p.m. If you are uploading documents, that's fine, but if you share the links to your documents, always make sure that you share, your share settings are set to anyone with the link can view. And if you've got any questions as you move throughout the week, don't hesitate to ask.